Hello everyone! Welcome back to my channel, The Theoretical Doctor Audio Blogs. In this video, I will be sharing my experience as a house officer during the night shift in the postnatal ward in the ONG department. The link to the article of this audio blog is available in the description below if you would prefer to read on it instead. Otherwise, let's begin. Perhaps you have read about my experience in Maternity 2 as the on-call house officer. Maternity 2, which is also known as the antenatal ward. Maternity 1 and Maternity 3 is where the postnatal patients go to right after delivery, be it from normal delivery, assisted delivery, or post-lower segment cesarean section. Maternity 1 and Maternity 3 are the places I was allocated to in the early days of my post-tagging period. During my time as a house officer in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynaecology in the hospital that I'm practicing in, we were experiencing a shortage in house officers. Hence, only one house officer would be allocated per ward. And if you are allocated to be in charge of Maternity 3, this means that you would need to handle both Maternity 1 and 3 at night. Thus, how do I go about my night shift in these places? Arriving 10 to 30 minutes prior to the start of my shift. My shift begins at 7 p.m. and ends at 9 a.m. Similar to Maternity 2, I would arrive around 10 to 30 minutes earlier prior to the start of my shift and receive handover from the morning or AM team in Maternity 1 and Maternity 3. This is followed by taking pictures of the patient's allocation board and posting it in the MOHO group. The patient count needs to be updated in the group every 7 p.m. and 5 a.m. Next, I would start reviewing the acute beds in Maternity 3, followed by the post-lower segment cesarean section LSCS patients who have been transferred in but yet to be seen by medical officers or those who are still on intravenous drips, IVD, and urinary catheter. Next, while awaiting the medical officers on call to come for rounds, I would settle the transfer-ins of new patients. Usually, patients who are transferred in requires Plan D, which are prep discharges, as most post-spontaneous vertex delivery patients, otherwise known as patients who gave birth normally, would usually be discharged the following day. After rounds, I would go about the same job list, which are transfer-ins of new patients, doing the Plan D in both Maternity 1 and Maternity 3, as well as attending to acute cases. Usually, the acute cases seen in Maternity 1 and 3 would be hypertensive patients and postpartum hemorrhage. Hypertensive crisis patients are quite common and usually the control is more stricter postpartum. Postpartum hemorrhage occurring in ward is a rare case, and usually if there is, the patient would have been managed and stabilized in labor ward prior to transferring out. What used to irk me the most was the fact that I need a medical officer to countersign my prescriptions prior to the nurses serving them. This serves a real issue as the post-cesarean section patients would be in pain, and in order for me to manage the patients, I had to complete the transfer-in review, find a medical officer who is free, present my case, and then only get a countersign when I would very much prefer to just serve the analgesics immediately. This of course continues on until the morning team comes for their review, which is around 6 a.m. On good days, one thing happens at a time, meaning in Maternity 3 followed by Maternity 1. Sometimes there would be less transfer-ins, but on bad days, everything occurs simultaneously at once and I would be rushing between both wards continuously. After the morning team arrives, it is time to complete the duties after being summoned. Most of the time, it is pharmacist referrals for injection technique for post-cesarean section patient, as they would be on subcutaneous Calaxane, or social worker referrals, physiotherapy referrals, or off to prepare prep discharges, also known as Plan D, for certain patients who are due to be discharged but the discharges are yet to be prepped till 9 a.m. Personally, I prefer Maternity 2 as compared to Maternity 1 and Maternity 3. As I mentioned in my previous article, on good days, it is extremely cold in the sense that when there is no active issue, we are able to sit for a bit and rest and perhaps even eat. However, on bad days, the ward could be burning with multiple issues as well. Personally, it was an experience to be handling Maternity 1 and Maternity 3, provided that you work with good bosses, of course, which may not always be the case. Thank you for listening to this audio blog. Do stay tuned for more, which will be available every Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Remember to click on the subscribe button as well as the bell button so you won't miss out on any upcoming audio blogs.